guys, it's Heather with the Glittery Bohemian. I thought I would come and film a new tutorial for you on my Life is Better at the Pool cup. I've had a lot of questions about how I print the water slide and how I put the water slide on. So I've already printed it, but I'll show you here. Already started the process, but stick it. Hot. Okay. It's not supposed to do that, but we've got a little bit of the sealer still on it. This is Hayes clear water slide paper, and what I do is I just print a full sheet. I just stretch the image on like a word processor. I use OpenOffice, and I stretch it to fit the page as much as I can, and I print it on high glossy photo paper, high quality. If you don't print high quality, you'll get the streaks going through. It's the same for printable vinyl. So you're going to want to make sure you switch in your properties. You're going to want to go and change it to high quality on the printer. So this has been printed, and I started the sealing process. I'm on my last coat now, so I thought I would talk to you guys about how I seal it. What I do is I alternate coats of the matte clear, Rust-Oleum, and then I used to use Plastidip. But I really like this stuff. I found it accidentally one day at Home Depot because they didn't have Plastidip. It's Rust-Oleum Leak Seal. This stuff is really stretchy. I like it a lot more than Plastidip, so I've been using this more often, even though I have a million cans of Plastidip still. So I've already done this twice. I did the matte, and then I did the Rust-Oleum. So I just let them dry and then alternate them. I've done this twice. I'm on my last coat now. So I'm just going to do my last coat of the matte and then the Rust-Oleum, and I will come back and hopefully be able to show you how I stretch it to fit the cup. So I am back. I have my prepped this 30 ounce curve. A lot of people wanted to see me do this on a 30 ounce curve, so I am going to tape it for you. I also have a 20 ounce sitting here that I finished, and I just wrapped a 20 ounce skinny, so that was super easy. So this works on many different sizes, but the most difficult is this big daddy right here. I don't think I'd suggest going any larger than this one. I know they make like 40 ounce curves. That might be a stretch. I mean, you could always do like a partial wrap and have like a little bit left at the top and bottom, and your glitter would cover it anyway. So you could do it. It just technically wouldn't be completely covered. But if you want it completely covered, I would suggest not going larger than this. So here's my prepped cup. I like warm water. People tell you use room temperature. I like mine warm. Got some warm water in like a cake pan kind of thing. And then I've got my cup here. I've got a paintbrush. I use that to kind of smooth out the edges sometimes. There's scissors. I have an X-Acto knife over here to cut my seam, which I'm still not 100% wonderful at, but I do it anyway. Here's my water slide paper. Remember, you print it out on the highest quality setting. I stretched it out to fit 8.5 by 11. I trimmed this, like the small pieces. There were very small pieces on the sides, and then about maybe ½ an inch on this side that I trimmed off. So it's trimmed, and I'm just going to put it in the water. I put it in the water upside down. Let me move this out of the way. And you need towels. You need lots of towels. So I put it in the water upside down first. I kind of don't even like, some people will slide it off the paper and stretch. I usually end up taking the whole thing off. Works better for me that way. But like I said, Plastidip is okay, but the Rust-Oleum Leak Seal is where it's at. Like, it's really stretchy. So I think I'm going to keep using that instead of the Plastidip. Like I said, costs a little more, but a lot easier. I'm going to flip this now. a lot easier to deal with. And I'm just going to let this sit until, sometimes it doesn't separate because the sealant kind of sticks it to the edges. So I'll kind of, as you can see, it's coming off. I mean, this is how stretchy it is. Like, I can literally just peel it off here. And if you get like the little paper on there, because it's stuck to the paper, you just use your nail or something, it comes right off. So, I mean, this is coming off mostly. It's just stuck at the edges. So I'm just going to help it along a little. I mean, this stuff is super stretchy. Okay, so I've got my paper separated. I'm going to take my cup. You want to wet your cup. I just take some of the water out of here, out of my bucket, and put it on there. And here comes, I have totally just taken it off. I think it's easier that way for me. And then I start by just try to find a straight spot here. Push it down. And then I hold the cup and I'm going to press it, kind of press down with my hand here. And I'm going to pull it this way a little to stretch it. Set it down flat. Now the important part, the part that's going to be the most difficult, is the top, to get it to meet. So you're going to have to stretch it quite a bit to get it. Let me try and get a little bit closer here. There we go. I'll wet this some more as I go around. You want to keep this wet as much as possible so that I'm throwing water everywhere, so that you can work with it easier anyway. Let's see, I've got a big wrinkle here. Try and work it out. And I can pull this straight down to the bottom. And you see it fits. I just have to work it out. Stretch this one out. And it's going to be Alright, we got this far. Stretch it. And you can just pull kind of like a slightly at the top. And then hold it with your hand. Stretch it this way. Get a little. I mean, the good thing about this one is if you're doing the glitter one and you have like a little crack, you can hide it with the glitter anyway. Not really necessary. It's 100% perfect. Helps to have a washcloth nearby too, because a lot of these like smaller ones you can kind of push out. And I'm just here, I'm just pulling down a little bit. And I'm going to pull out a little. See, that got rid of that wrinkle. Got a little one here. Let me see if I can push it out. Sometimes it'll do this, and then you gotta pull it back up a little bit. That is fairly easy to fix because you can just hop over here, lift this up a little bit, and stretch it just a tiny bit up. You see, and it's fine. And just pull it forward a little bit to get rid of the wrinkle. With that a little. I got a little crack here, but this is not a big deal. It's at the top, and I put glitter up there anyway, and you can't even see it right now. So I'm not going to get upset about that. Get rid of that wrinkle. See, we're getting there. Just keep your cup wet. Keep your water slide wet. I also got a little crack right here, but look, you see, if you push it back together, it hides the crack. So you don't have to get like angry at it and throw it away unless you like completely rip your paper. Okay, the important part is to get all the way around to the other side, and I'm pretty close. I might have to make some adjustments over here, but now I've got, I know this is a very exciting process. Stretch this one a little. So I've got these to meet now. I need to work on the top. And I'll work on this crack again. Now that, like, once you get the bottom to meet, you can work on the top a little more. So let me get that bottom together. That way. Make sure to get all the wrinkles out. I'll take my brush. Brush works. I usually use that towards the very end to get rid of the little bubbles. Like a washcloth for the bigger stuff. Now I've got to work on getting this closed up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at my beginning here. Try and stretch a little bit this way. Of course, you guys get to see one that's being people have asked me this before. How do you do it? A lot of patience and a lot of stretching. That's exactly what it is. I've done a few of these, and my first one was a pain. My second one went on in 5 minutes. This one's not being easy either. So it's just a lot of pulling and tugging, and you can't pull hard. You have to stretch a little bit at a time. I'm getting close. Just keep it. Just working it. Just tugging a little bit. Pulling it there for itself. Right, we're almost there. You gotta stretch a little bit more. I'm gonna be careful. Almost there. I think I'm gonna try stretching this side over here because this one's getting angry with me. So I'm gonna go for this one. All I did was peel back the other side. Like, once you get them to meet, so it's not very hard to put it back where it came from. It's that initial, like, stretching it out that makes it difficult. Okay, let's see what I got. This is still fine. You see, that still meets just fine. Okay, I'm still not there yet. I'm going to go like this. Stretch it out. A little bit more. Ooh, there it is. I'm getting close. Getting close, getting close. Almost there. You have to have time when you do this one. A lot of time. On your hands. This is not something you just slap together. For sure. Get the tiniest little bit join up here. And I've got like a little crack right here, but the glitter is going to cover that up. Even if I was doing the one that had the bubbles on it, like, you don't have to get that upset about a crack at the top because you can put bubbles on over it. It's not a big deal. Getting very close. That's good because this one's getting upset with me. Okay. I'll wet this a little bit more. And another thing you need to keep an eye on is the crease because it will separate and you will need to keep squishing it back together. That part is pretty easy. Once you get it cut, you just have to watch it. And all you do is take your hands and squeeze it back together. But you do have to watch it because it will come apart. Okay, now this is such a small area. You see how I can just like take my fingers and squeeze it? That's good. You don't want to pull it that much anymore. Like I said, mine's getting pretty mad at me at this point. You have been handling me enough. So I am going to work on cutting the crease in a minute. Squeeze this together. See, I'm just taking my fingers and pushing in, and it's closing. That's all you need to do, pretty much. Now I'm gonna check before I do my seam here for any big wrinkles, and then I'll deal with that one little patch in a minute. We'll just squeeze it together like I just did. I'm gonna take my brush at this point, I think. See, there's like little tiny, I don't know if you can see it. You get like little air bubbles. And just take your brush and brush up or down, whatever direction's closer. And it pushes them out. I don't fold mine under, I leave it up and then I cut it with an X-Acto knife. I'll show you that in the next step. Okay, I've got this little seam pretty close. I'm gonna go ahead and cut it and then so I can squeeze it together. I think I've got all of these. Let me stretch this out now. All the wrinkles worked out, but now I see I've got another spot. So, Okay, I think I'm good here. I've got most of my air bubbles pop. I've got this little crack here. Like I said, if you want to worry about it being perfect, you could start over again, but this one is going to have glitter all up in here, so that's going to get covered up anyway. And I've got like a couple tiny cracks. This one was not a cooperative example. Most of the time I don't have a lot of cracks. But I did get it on here, and I'm kind of squeezing that seam. I still have a little spot there, but for now I think I am going to cut the seam. I just take a razor blade, X-Acto knife. I don't measure, some people do, but I just kind of look and see. I'm going to follow this line here and try to go straight down. I'm going to do that a couple times.
It's actually reading 2100 now.
Okay, take the knife. I'm gonna run it down the same. Try and run it down the same spot a few times. And at the bottom here, like I said, I don't usually fold it over. I'm gonna take my scissors here and snip it. Usually that kind of starts the line I cut. Well, I've got one side cut, but as you can see, I still have this. So I have to pick this side up and pull it off. Usually, like, if you have a problem, just use your scissors to start you off. And if I can still see my line, so I could cut along it again if I need to. Just gently. So I'm not the best at seams, like I said. But I'm going to re-wet this a little, just so that I can push it back together. Push it, squeeze it with your fingers to get it to meet the middle. Try to do your best with getting the white to go away. And you do have to keep an eye on it, like I said. Just squeezing this together. I mean, like I said, not the perfect example of this. There's a little crack here and there. But when I know my glitter is going to cover it, I don't worry about it. I mean, if this needed to be perfect and nothing was, needed to just be water, which I think that's kind of boring. My cups don't usually just have the plain water, even with the the non-glitter version. I put bubbles, so I could always stick like a bubble over that. So anyway, I've got it wrapped. I've got my seam cut. I'm just going to keep watching this, push it together until it dries. And then I will kind of trim up some of these edges. I'll show you that part next. And then we get to the next step after that, which is epoxying. So I will be back with you then. So I'm back. I've got this water slide on here, dried a little bit overnight. I did fix some of the cracks. I pushed this one back together a little bit, but like I said, it's not a big deal if you have any cracks up here because I'm putting glitter up there anyway, so it's going to get covered up. But match our seal. It's closed up. We've got like a little tiny crack right there. Just stuff like that. If you have imperfections with this one, it's not a big deal because it's going to be covered up in that area. But the middle part, that's the good part. That's what we need to be nice. So that looks pretty good. So I'm going to show you how I take this bottom part off. And on the bubble version, the non-glitter version, I put mica powder on the bottom when it's turning, and then it just hardens. I just take a little bit and put it in epoxy and then let it turn before I do anything else after this step. But with this one, glitter goes here, so I don't have to worry about that. I'm going to take my X-Acto, which I'm the worst at replacing the blades, so I'm not really the best. And then I cut in here already a little bit. I just cut in there, and then I just cut around on the edge as close as I could get. It's hard to see what I'm doing because I'm left-handed. And there we go. Let me see if that helps. There we go. And then I'm just going to trim. As close to the edge as I can. It's not like... It doesn't have to be perfect because, like I said, glitter's covering us up. If you're just going to cover it up anyway, you don't stress about it. So I have a pretty clean bottom now. That's perfectly fine for glittering. I'm going to take this top, but I like to leave the top on sometimes and then epoxy over it. But I'll see if it cooperates. If it's going to be cooperative, then I'll just take it off now. Sometimes it's still like really stretchy. This might be okay. Yeah, it's pretty good. At the top I do the same thing. I cut as close as I can to the edge. And to get it as flat as you can, if you take your razor blade and you lay it flat and then you just saw against your water slide, it will come off evenly right against the lip. Okay, so I've got the rim cleaned up. Looks a lot better. Now I am going to take this and lay a coat of epoxy on it. So I'll take you into my little tumbler room and I'll show you that part. Okay, so I'm back. I'm ready to epoxy. I have two of these pool cups going on at once. I have my 20-ounce skinny and my 30-ounce curve. They're both going to be epoxied the same way. So these have both been wrapped and kind of cleaned up on the top and bottom. The wrap's dry. Let it dry overnight. I mixed my epoxy. I've told you this in my other videos. I mixed my part A, part B. I just pour it straight from the bottle. I use KS resin, Stone UV. I heat my part A in the wintertime. Right now I don't need to because it's like 86 outside. Mix both parts and I put it in a candle warmer in a water bath. And wipe this water off a little bit. I don't have a lot of bubbles. You can see there's a little bit, but my torch will get rid of those. So what I do with these cups, I have like a secret method. I take some alcohol inks. This is Tim Holtz. Hard to see. Let me turn my light on. Dark in here. This is Tim Holtz turquoise. It's kind of messed up because I've used it so much. This is what I put in my epoxy. It kind of makes the color pop a little bit. I don't put a lot. Maybe like a few squirts. And since this bottle is angry and likes to drip a lot, sometimes some of these alcohol ink bottles, recycling because of COVID. Cut one finger off my glove so I can get my 5 uses. Here's your hack for the day. So I'm going to stir this up. It's not going to be saturated. I don't want it to be saturated. I just want it to give it a little bit of color. It's almost like a stained glass. I don't want it to look like when you're dropping inks on a cup, you know, when they're very saturated. I just want it to give it a little bit more color than it has. So this helps it to pop a little bit. Stir it for a minute. And now I've got my batch of ink. My ink epoxy. Looks like that. And I'm gonna start applying it. I don't turn my turner when I apply it at the same time. I like to turn it as I go. So. And you're not flood coating. I would say it's not like a thin coat, but it's not like a flood coat either. Just like kind of like an average amount. I mixed 30 mLs for both of these because it's a pretty smooth surface. I mean, like if you're dealing with chunky glitter or something like that, you're gonna have to mix a lot to cover two of these sizes. But since the surface is smooth, you don't need that much. I want to make sure I get my rim, get my seal. I always do my seal several times, even though I end up sanding it down and stuff just to make sure I have a good one. This is where I don't understand why companies have turners that turn both directions. I'm sure there's a purpose for it, but it drives me nuts because I don't keep my turner on while I epoxy, and sometimes it will start going the other direction. I have to turn it on and off a few times. That drives me cray. I'm sure there's a reason. I'm sure if there's somebody out there that wants to tell me, feel free, but I don't understand it. Like that you can just go to the same direction for all I care, and not getting that. So far, my Kraken's cooperating today. Sometimes it'll just turn the opposite way. I have to turn it on and off several times to get it to go the other way. So it's a very subtle color pop on top of the color that you already have. But it does make it pop a little more. And now that this is covered, I'm going to go around with my finger. Why are you making that noise? There we go. And I might add a little extra here and there, especially where the seal is. I mean, keep in mind this is your first coat. And I put some on my bottom. Yeah, like I said, if this was the bubble cup, what I do is I do the bottom first, just the bottom, and I put mica that matches this color on the bottom of the cup. And I let it just spin with just the epoxy on the bottom. Then I epoxy the whole cup. So that one's slightly different than this one. I want to make sure my water slide edge is covered. Like I said, the glitter is going to take care of all that. There's one down. I'm going to do the other one over here. Yeah, to just unscrew this one and not even turn it on. Turn it by hand. Even looking at this, I think I mixed probably too much. So it probably would have been, I probably would have been okay to do maybe even less. I think I actually did about 25 mLs here, but I still have a lot. There's a lot left. Some people say KS takes forever to cure for them. Maybe it's the heat lamps, I don't know, but it doesn't take mine long at all. I know a lot of people epoxy while their turners are on. I cannot do that. It's just too fast for me. I feel like it's like crazy out of control. I don't enjoy it. I can glitter while my turner is on. I don't have a problem with that. But then even sometimes I will turn my turner off and just rotate it while I'm glittering. Yeah, I clearly I mixed a little too much, but I'll probably put a little extra on here just to coat it better. So you can do it when there's already epoxy on it, but I feel like if I do it before it's coated, I'm missing spots if I don't get them as well as I want to. So I like to be able to see what I'm doing, I guess, and control it. The speed a little better. Plus, if you notice, one of my turners moves a lot faster than the other one. They're both good turners. I have this one's a Kraken, which I love. You have to special order it. It takes like 8 weeks to get it, but it has all kinds of attachments and it's really smooth and quiet. This one's a Bros, and it was cheap. It was like 30 bucks. It's a pretty good turner. It's a little louder. It doesn't come with as many attachments, but you can get it right away, and it's a reasonable price. So I always, for a budget turner, recommend this to people. You can get it off Amazon. The Kraken came from Etsy. And I just recently, today, ordered a 9-cup Cuposaurus. I'm so excited about that because now I can get more orders out to people. Thanks to my customers. I was able to order one. So I'm going to torch this really fast. I'll show you. Just going to hit this with my torch really quick. Flame Bay cooking torch. And I'm going to let this spin about 4 or 5 hours. I'll be ready to sit for a little bit. And then I will come back and show you the glitter step. Hi there, we are back. It's actually pretty late here and it's quiet, so I figured I would come in and tape the next step without interruption. Remember, we're working on this one. This is one I just finished. This is a 20 ounce, however, we're working on a 30 ounce now. We are to the glitter step, one of the layers of glitter. So I'm going to show you what I do now. So let me just recap where we are. We wrapped the cup. It took forever. It wasn't the most cooperative example of my wraps, but you know, it's on there. It looks pretty decent. Don't worry about little cracks as long as they're in the top, or wrinkles or imperfections that happen like right up the top, because, or at the very bottom even, because they won't show with the glitter. I keep telling you that, so don't stress about it. You're most likely, I don't have any on the bottom, you're most likely going to get, possibly anyway, I don't normally get them, but this time around I got a couple. You're most likely going to get them up top if you do get them. So I have a couple, no big deal. I stretched it, wrapped it, let it dry. The next day I came back and trimmed the bottom. I mean, it's not like 100% even or perfect, but that's not a big deal either. And then I came back and I epoxied it. I trimmed a little bit here. And then I epoxied the whole thing. I added turquoise alcohol ink to my epoxy to make the colors pop a little bit. Tim Holtz turquoise. And then after the epoxy, I came back and I trimmed this even closer. So now our edge on our top is really clean. And when I epoxy again to get my seal, it won't have a bunch of crud up here. So that looks better. So now we are going to glitter. I start with the bottom, so I take my tub upside down. I use these two glitters for this one. I mean, they don't have to be these glitters, but I would suggest these two types. This one is a sparkly, kind of like a, I wouldn't say it's a fine glitter. It's not chunky glitter either. It's just one of those ones that like super sparkly. It is called Exquisite Super Sparkle Glitter. And it is from Sparkle City Treasures. I don't know if they even carry this one anymore. But, I mean, there are a couple that come to mind that I could think of. I know Glitterful has one. I think, I don't know what the color name is, though. So this one's a little lighter, but this one's from Glitterful, and it's called Airhead. They have it as a metallic fine, so that's probably what you're looking for, like a metallic sort of glitter. But this one's called Airhead, and I know Glitterful still has it. But you could check Sparkle City Treasures and see if they have this also. It's called Exquisite. And then the other one is an iridescent, so you're going to need an iridescent. This one's called Queen. Really pretty fine iridescent. Again, I'm not sure if they have this one anymore either, because I've held on to these two glitters for quite a while. I buy glitter, so much glitter, and then I hold on to it, and then I go back and use it, so we'll see if they still have it, but those are the ones that I'm using. So what I do is I take, I don't know, about half, a small amount. I mean, I don't throw a lot in a cup, but I put about half of this, maybe a little more than half of the iridescent, just because I like the way that looks a little bit better than this being the dominant color. And I just mix it in a little solo cup. Now in the past, I've tweaked this process a little bit. I have glittered like one coat of this one and then one coat of this one on top, and then like sprinkled more of this and this. It was like this whole process, and it ended up being way too bulky. So I ended up just mixing them together, and it gives the same effect, and it's a lot easier. So that's what I've come down to in my troubleshooting on this one, because I've made quite a few of these at this point. So little more than half of the iridescent, and then you got your metallic. So you're going to take another solo cup. I always do this. Number one rule with Mod Podge, because we are using Mod Podge here. We need Mod Podge. And some brushes, obviously. Do not just dip your brush straight into the Mod Podge, because you're going to contaminate it. You're going to get glitter from all projects, every kind of project you've ever done, and your Mod Podge is going to look a mess, and it's going to get glitter on other projects. I know it's impossible not to contaminate your projects with like a random piece of glitter, but this helps. You don't want to be getting glitter in your Mod Podge. So I always pour my Mod Podge into a separate container in small amounts and use it that way instead of dipping into my Mod Podge, because you see, it's not contaminated. So I'm going to take a little bit, and this is the cup I used before for another cup. So it's got the same glitter in it, so I'm not worried about contaminating it that way. So I'm going to pour a little bit in here. I like to do a little at a time because I don't want to waste it. So just a little bit. And I like these kind of brushes with the flat tip, because I feel like I can spread the Mod Podge better. So I prefer to use these kind. So I'm going to do the bottom first. So I'm just going to take my flat brush. Very exciting, I know. Don't all cheer at the same time. I gotta get out a piece of parchment paper. I forgot that part. So, I mean, you know the rule with Mod Podge. I'm sure if you're watching this, you've used it before. You want to try and get decent coat on there. Make sure it's spread around, because if you don't spread it around and flatten it, you see how I'm flattening it, you're gonna get streaks and clumps in your glitter. This is the same thing with Tack It, which I have a Tack It tutorial coming up too. I'm going to take out some parchment paper. I mainly use parchment and wax paper to catch my glitter. It's just fine right now. I'm gonna weigh this down. Just roll it. And I'm gonna take my little cup of glitter and just sprinkle it on the bottom. You're gonna have to do this a couple times. So that's, again, my sob story with Mod Podge. That's why I'm 100% epoxy method girl, if I can get away with it. All right, so that's after one coat on the bottom. Now I'm going to, and I don't have a lot of glitter mixed, but that's okay. I'm going to pick my parchment paper up, because I like to mix this in small amounts too, because I don't want to waste my glitter. I don't want to mix like all of these bottles together and then not be able to use them separately. So I also do those a little bit at a time. Now I'm going to wait for this bottom to dry, so I'm going to start going around the sides. I like to start at the seam and make this like my longest kind of little piece. So find my seam, and then I also, when I glitter these, I cover this little line here. I don't like that line, so I cover that with glitter. So I make sure I go past that. And I'm just gonna take my Mod Podge and shape it into something. Kind of like, they remind me of, is it stalactites or stalagmites? I don't know which one hangs from the ceiling of a cave, but you know, probably should, since I live in Missouri and we have a lot of those, but I don't. And then I'm just going to go to the next, a little bit further away. I'm just kind of freehanding these, and then you just make like little V's and go back to the bottom of your cup. Keep going, make sure you're covering that crease, that line, so that you're going past that point. You just always end up with the two large ones meeting at the back, but that's all right. I just kind of make them work. Alright, so smooth these out a little bit. Let me add a little bit more. Because my son, of course, called for my help in the middle of this, and now it's dry, so I'm going to add a little more. I also keep a kind of a large dry brush on the side, and I use that to brush off my extra glitter. And this parchment paper is driving me cray. Let me put another weight on it. So it's rolling up on me. I'm gonna just, I try to stay away from where the Mod Podge is because I don't want to get Mod Podge on this dry brush. But, you know, if you kind of brush around that area where your excess came, cleans it up so you don't have like all of this. See, you don't have that. I'm gonna take this and look, I'll take my brush. See, it's clean now. I also don't really worry about, like, I get some of those iridescent pieces that stick to the cup and they don't come off, but they look really good after you epoxy it. So I don't really worry about getting those. I do get the metallic ones off, but I think the iridescent ones, when they're spread out on the cup, kind of give it a little bit of personality. So I don't worry about that. Okay, so this has been brushed. I'm going to go back to my bottom and let that around part dry again. Working on my bottom, it's not dry. This Mod Podge dries super duper fast. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my Mod Podge, which in this little cup is getting kind of nasty because there's some glitter in there, but I have it in a cup, so it doesn't matter. And I'm also going to pick up glitter on this paintbrush. So I need to make sure when I clean my brush, I clean it really well and get the glitter out. Just brushing the bottom again. And like I said before, I used to put a lot of layers of each one, and it made it difficult to epoxy. Like I would have to put a lot of coats of epoxy. So this looks just as good, and it's easier to epoxy. It's not as lumpy. Alright, so I've got my bottom coated again. And here I go. That's 2 coats. It's getting better. I might go over it one more time, depending on how I feel about it when it's dry. And now I'm going to go back to those points. And do them again. So basically, that's the gist of the glittering for the first coat of glitter. So then after, you know, I'll do my second coat here. I'll determine if I feel like it needs a third one, then I'll do that. Then I flip it, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start here, do my big dip down here, and just kind of go around and match them to where they are on the bottom so that they're kind of evenly spaced. Same thing. Just glitter all the way around and do it, you know, 2 or 3 times till I'm happy with the coverage, and then we'll move on to the next step, which is going to be sealing and then more epoxy. And then we'll talk about the second coat of glitter. Okay, so we are on our second coat of epoxy. I've done the second coat and I torched my cup. Now I'm going to add the third type of glitter. I'll show you how I do that. And that one is, ooh, hello, Louisiana Lace from Mr. Nola's. Very pretty glitter. I just take a little bit of it and I put it in a little solo cup. And I like to turn my turner off because I have to place it in certain spots. And then I unscrew the little arm so I can rotate it a little bit. Actually. Okay, got my parchment paper here. It's going to catch my loose glitter. I don't use that much anyway. I sprinkle it in the cup and I just sprinkle it kind of down the tip of each little part. It's a mixture. It's got silver pieces and opal in it. So it looks really pretty on this. It's got a blue shift to it. A little bit of pink. And now's your time too, if you see any. I'll use my fingernail to kind of push down any pieces, and I'm probably going to throw some more on here anyway. If you see anything that you can hide that you messed up on, or an area that you don't like in particular, could cover it in some glitter. Like I see a little tiny piece of cracking that I don't like, so I am going to cover that with some glitter. Look at that. Especially the seam. I tend to go a little bit deeper with the glitter on the seam. People do put their names back there often though, so that helps too. I mean, there's nothing you can do about having a seam on it. On a full wrap, it's just, you're just going to have one. I like to have a couple like stray pieces around too, because that looks a little better. They're just kind of haphazard but planned at the same time. Normally, if I'm glittering like something just to coat it, I leave my turner on, but this is a little bit more complicated, so I'm not hurting anything by leaving it on or leaving it off. And I like to look at it. I stand up and look at it and see if there's anything that I want to kind of tweak or add a little more to. If you get a piece you don't like, since this is just a thin coat of epoxy anyway, you can just push it around where you want it, because you have to epoxy it anyway. Again, so. And now we're going to do the same thing to the bottom. This way a little bit. There we go. Just move them around, doesn't matter. If you plan that ahead when you know you're going to have to add another coat of epoxy anyway, it doesn't matter. It's not like it's your last coat and then, you know, you have to touch it and mess it up and you gotta do another coat. This is not the case. We still have to decal and do like 2 more thin coats. So we're golden. Okay, now I'm going to Make sure there aren't any shardy pieces of this opal sticking up off the rim. And I'm also, see, I got one right there. I'm also going to go around and make sure, try and push these down as much as I can. Because if you have one that's sticking like way out, you are going to have to sand it down eventually. So, try to go around and make sure that I don't have one that's just obnoxiously poking out and going to have to get sanded. Because this glitter, it's only had one coat. So my other glitter layers are not flat either yet. And that's why I add the chunky now, because I'm going to have to coat it again anyway. But if I can get this middle part, I'll add one more coat after this one. And then my middle part will be smooth enough to add a decal. That still gives me, you know, a couple more coats to cover this glitter. All of these glitters that I've put on here. So there we are. So I've got my second coat of epoxy on. I've got my third glitter done. And I'm going to let this coat of epoxy cure, 5 hours, whatever it takes. And then I will come back. And I'm going to add one more thin coat over the chunky that I just put on there. Then we'll get to decal. So that will be the next time I see you after the second coat. Decal time. Hi guys, I've come back to show you the decal part of the cup. I already did the name. On the back happens to be my name, but it's not my cup. And I marked the center with a clip so that I can kind of center the front. And I just put it on my cup stand here. I've got my decal ready. I use Expressions vinyl decal paper. This is the gridded kind. I like their paper, transfer paper also. They have really good transfer paper. So I've got this ready to go. I'm just going to pull it off of here. I use the wet method to put my decals on because a lot of people on curves especially tend to put their decal like about this large in that flat space. That I don't like that. I like my decal to cover the cup more to kind of showcase it. So using the wet method allows you to curve it more and you can move it when you make mistakes. So you don't have all those bumps and you have to fix it and all that stuff. So if you've seen my other videos, you're going to watch this part again and I'll explain it again. This one's a little, I'm able to explain kind of how I curve the words naturally to the cup instead of having to warp it. I print my words out straight. See, if you look, it's straight. What I'm going to do is cut little cuts between the words, and that allows it to naturally curve to the cup shape when I put it down. I don't want to cut all the way through the paper, so I'm going to find some spaces. I'm not going to cut the vinyl. I'm going to cut between, you know, life and better here. I'm going to cut between better and they, and then I'm going to cut. And I'm going to turn it the other way. I'm not going to cut all the way through. I'm going to cut a little slice here, and a little slice here, and then a little one between pool and at. And what that does is it adds hinges. You see how I can now move this. I've hinged it a little bit, so I have a little more freedom. Now with the wet method, you need a water bottle, a spray bottle, with just some water and a little bit of Dawn dish soap. That's why you see little bubbles. And I spray my cup a lot, which I usually like to put my tapes down so that they don't get wet. And I spray my cup a lot, spread it around, and you're going to spray the decal, the back of it, a lot. You're going to get water everywhere. I just use paper towels to clean it up. Now when I set it down, you can move it now, and you can kind of take a look and see where you want it, where you think it looks better. My center has moved. Now this decal has this weird swoosh here. Looking at it, you would think the center is going to be oh, you know, over here, but you have to remember this swooshes here that kind of lopsides the center. So I kind of like to make my center like a little bit after the L. You know. After that, I like to set it down and make sure that it's flat. I like to kneel down on the floor and check it out and see if it's level. Now I can kind of push this down a little bit and take a look. Let's see if I like it. Now, since I did this and hinged it a little bit, I can take this better and move it up to curve to the cup. And I can move it under the transfer paper because it doesn't matter about the transfer paper being cut. It's the words you want to fit on the cup. Got my curve here. And I'm going to just push it down. Push these words down. Just push. See, my paper it's hinged. It's hinging because of my cuts that I put in it. See, I still have I have bumps where the paper is up where I cut it, but the letters are sitting flat. And I'm going to put this pool down. You see how it's curving itself. It's curved itself to the cup because I cut those lines in it. Then I'm going to take it. I'm going to put it on here. Let me grab a paper towel so I can wipe up some of this soppiness everywhere. I'm going to use the same paper towel to kind of squish some of the water out. And push some of this down. And just kind of, I don't really use my scraper yet. I'm going to use that in a minute. And just kind of push it down because sometimes you need to make adjustments to it. And that's why you use the wet method also, because when you peel this off, you can still make changes to it. It's not 100% stuck to the cup yet. This one's wanting to come off, so we're good there. So be careful taking it off during the wet method because sometimes some of the decal will stick, but this came off. I'm going to put it down flat, look at it, make sure I'm happy with how straight it is. It looks pretty decent. Sometimes this end of the better comes up too high for me. It curves too closely to the word life. So what I'm going to do is take my tools here. I'm going to spray this just a little bit and see if I can get it up a little. I'm just going to move that side of the word down. Let's see if I can get it towards you. You see how it's too close to the L there? I'm going to try and adjust that. So I'm just going to take my pick here, and it comes right up because it's not dry. So I can peel this up. This word in particular can be difficult on this SVG because all the letters are linked with like this little tiny piece. It does like to stretch a lot, but it's easy to fix. And it only seemed to happen with the last two letters, so I'm just going to make an adjustment with those. It should be fine. Just take your time. Stick your little tool under there. I want to fix the top of the word to make it even with the rest. So I'm going to adjust that first. There we go. And I can just push the rest of it right back down. Sometimes you just have to play with it for a minute. Get what you want. The beauty of the wet method, you can do that. I can curve the C a little bit, but it's still where I want it up here. And I can curve this R a little bit down at the bottom. But it's still up top where I want it, where I want the top part of it to be. Check and push this water out of here. Bump, if you get a little bump, again, move it around because it's not stuck to the cup yet. See, I can just push this down, get the bump out, and move it around until it sits flat. Boom. Really want to check these smaller, like this, the O pieces, because I've got that fine little piece in the middle. Make sure it's put down there. Now, let's look at this again. You see, we've got this decal covered, and it is curved around the cup, and it is even. So the next step is going to be another layer of epoxy, and I will see you after that. So here we are, poolside, with our finished cup. I did 2 thin layers of epoxy after I added the decal. This is what we're left with. I added a name, of course. So there you are. Your finished pool cup.